Hey everyone, it's Nick from Nick's Crossing, and welcome to the train room. Today we're going to be discussing and reviewing the Baldwin Sharks I just picked up. So here we go, all aboard. Alright guys, so you think of Baldwin, so automatically I go to thinking about steam engines, but no, these are diesels created by Baldwin, which is just so crazy to think about. Now back in the day, Baldwin was considered very late into the diesel game. You had many companies out there already, like EMC, which would become EMD, or Electromotive Division, instead of corporation. You'd also have Alco, you'd also have Fairbanks Morse, all in the game. Eventually you'd have GE stepping in there and Westinghouse working, these companies working together with other dieselized companies to create their technology, electronics, and things like that. So Baldwin worked along with the Lima Works, Westinghouse, and Baldwin to create these awesome locomotives that you're seeing today. Now, back in the 1940s, Baldwin started researching the technology of creating a slimmer nose looking locomotive like the F3s, FTs, F7s from EMD, also the Alco PA. Love those PAs. So they wanted to come up with a very streamlined looking locomotive and came up with the Shark design right here. And this locomotive right here caught a lot of flack for looking like Raymond Loewy's T1 or the GG1 style. So these were not created by Raymond Loewy. These are Baldwin's creation, but they still caught a lot of flack back then for copying the design, not coming up with something original. So automatically they were kind of put on the bad list there. So you have two prototypes before the RF16 came about. You have the DR-4-4 in 1949, which is a shark nose body. You also have the DR-6-4, which is also a shark nose body. Now back in 1950, the shark noses were produced all the way up to May of 1953 with 160 in total. Now 3 major Class 1 railroads on the East Coast purchased these locomotives, starting with the Baltimore and Ohio. They had 19 A units, 12 B units. The New York Central purchased 18 A's, 8 B's, and my favorite of all time, the mighty Pennsylvania Railroad purchased 72 A units, 31 B units. Now later on, the New York Central would actually sell some of theirs to the Monongahela Railroad, or Monongahela, it's just a very hard word for me to say. They sold those for their coal drags out there in southwestern Pennsylvania, and all of them would be destroyed. They call them retired, scrapped by the late 1960s, starting with the B&O in 1961, the PRR 1965, and the New York Central in 1967. Now the crazy thing is that there's only 2 Baldwin Sharks surviving to this day that were renumbered and lettered in D&H paint schemes. You have the number 1205 and 1216. Those 2 locomotives are currently residing in Michigan somewhere. And in 2021, there's some extra hype and buzz about these locomotives being restored very soon. According to my research, one of them had a drive shaft or something that was completely blown out, destroyed, but they're awaiting restoration for some like excursion revenue service, which is very, very exciting. So you guys might be saying, 1950 to 1965, let's just go from that span there, isn't really a long span for a diesel locomotive. There's many diesels out there right now that are peaking 50 years old that still run. But the problem is that when Baldwin went out of business, it was probably harder and harder to find parts or the services to fix these locomotives. Now, these engines were extremely reliable, and apparently it was Baldwin, Lima, and Westinghouse Corporation. They kind of created a pact, I guess, to create the technology and research for newer diesel projects or prolong the diesel program. I guess it was harder to find parts. A lot of these railroads started scrapping them very early on. So these locomotives were actually very powerful, and you would normally see these pulling a long coal train, which is what we'll be pulling today during the run section of this video. So we're going to go trackside. I'm going to show you guys some of the really cool features of these locomotives and how smooth they run, especially being a conventionally controlled locomotive. These run smooth as butter. All right, guys, so here's the Baldwin Shark, produced by Williams in the mid-2000s. This locomotive is just an awesome puller. It is so quiet as it's running. It has 2 motors, one in the front and rear. And we also have die-cast trucks, a die-cast pilot up here, die-cast frame. We have a die-cast tank under here. It just adds so much weight and pulling capabilities with this gorgeous engine. Up front, we have a die-cast operating coupler, We have a molded coupler in the back, which is fine to group up with the molded B unit and other A unit coupler. That's a dummy A unit. But we also have a front headlight, eliminated number boards, an interior cab light, which is just really cool. And on top of that, you have all the PRR glory. You have the Pennsylvania Keystone with the awesome racing stripes going down, just like a GG1. Can't forget the Keystone up front. And this one is numbered 9731. Now, I can't forget about the sounds as well. This engine has a bell. Typical Williams bell for their sound blast system, and then you have the horn. So because of that, those abrupt sounds or kind of harsh sounds, I would love to upgrade this locomotive with an ERR board, electric railroad. And what that would do, that would enable me to run this engine either in command or also conventional mode with all the rail sounds and such. It'd just be so cool to have this as a command unit set with the ABA running off of TMCC. Now this is a conventionally controlled locomotive with a 3-position E unit, so you get forward, neutral, and reverse. But I just think it needs that extra push of awesomeness. Now another thing I'd like to upgrade in the future would also be to put a PRR radio antenna going from the front to rear on this locomotive. That would just look so cool. So next I'll move this engine up. You guys can check out the B unit. And there is something kind of odd with the B unit I will point out. Alright guys, I'm going to use the old SW5 to pull this up. Here is the B unit right here. And there's something very interesting about the B unit that I noticed. The B unit is not numbered at all. And it is a gorgeous piece. We have a die-cast tank, die-cast frame, ABS body just like the powered A unit. We also have the billows or buffers in between to create a nice gap between each power unit. Lots of vent detail. The racing stripes continue down. Says the beautiful Pennsylvania down the side and that Brunswick green. Now the doors on here do not open either, and there are also no interior lighting, for this does not have an operational cab or operating cab. Now the dummy A unit, I'll actually move this off the track. We'll bring up the dummy A unit. Of course, it's facing the wrong direction. It's just like the powered A unit with the molded coupler in the back here. We have a die-cast operational coupler up here. We also have die-cast trucks with all the braking detail and Pennsy Keystone up front. And we also have the illumination of the dummy A unit, which is just so cool going on the track. All right, guys, so this review is not completed until we run these awesome Baldwin Sharks around the layout. Got them hooked up to some Weaver cars, some Conrail, Reading, and Pennsylvania, of course, mixed in the bunch, and also a Pennsylvania Chesapeake region caboose, just for fun. So here we go, everyone. All aboard. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for this video of the Baldwin Sharks, the RF16 from 1950 and 1953. These are just so cool. So glad I was able to pick one up at a train show for almost nothing at all. 60 bucks for an ABA set is just unheard of. But these engines, like I said, I'd love to upgrade these and enjoy them with more rail sounds and maybe some smoke. Maybe put 3 smoke units in these engines. That'd just be so cool. Smoke out this whole room of just Baldwin power. Just be awesome. But anyways, if you guys are new to the channel and you enjoyed this video, make sure to consider subscribing. Giving the video one of these really helps out the channel. And I love reading your guys' comments. If you have any thoughts or anything to add, I'd love to hear about it. But until next time, everyone, happy railroading. We'll see you next time.